Hello and welcome to the CoZmic Theo podcast. I'm your host, CoZmic Theo. This is our first episode at Glob Studios here in Ithaca, New York. I'm really excited to welcome my friend Jaya on for episode 1. He's an amazing guy I've known for some years. He's been through a lot and he's really fought hard for his mental health. I think there's something for everyone in this episode and I hope that you really get a lot from it. Bam. Thank you. All right, let's roll this thing. Tell me when we're hot, baby.
We're hot.
CoZmic Theo podcast in 3, 2, 1.5, 1.1111. Here we go. My brother Jaya. I like to call you Saint Jaya sometimes. It's kind of a joke and kind of not. People that live on the edge of the grief plane, people that have been through a lot, that are going through a lot, are a little saintly at times and have been witnessing your journey, man. And it's more than compassion. I'm actually inspired, and I'm intrigued. I'm curious. So this conversation is meant to be beautiful healing journey for anyone that's a part of it. But let's start with you, man. Let's say what's up, man. How you doing?
Let's say what's up. How you doing? Grateful to be here. Thank you for having me, Theo. Yeah, I'm doing okay in this moment. You know, as you know, we did a sweat lodge today, a traditional Native American sweat lodge. So kind of, having that as part of my my daily flow today is pretty special. Mm-hmm. But it's been really intense, man. It's like no way to kind of sugarcoat it. It's been like yesterday and the day prior to yesterday that have been the two most intense days of my life in a few different ways, and so it's a lot.
I know when people ask me how I'm doing, or you ask someone else, you might hear oh, it's a lot right now, or we come from a time where it felt like in the 90s and early 2000s, when someone asks how you're doing, you always say great. Whether you were or not.
Fine.
And we're getting to a point in our journeys where
everything's fine. There's even that what's her name song. I hear you. I feel you. Everything's fine. Who is that? Wow, that was but that was from the 90s, I think.
It was like that. 2000s. It was like that. It wasn't. It was a question. What do you call it? It's a rhetorical question. It's not a question that people really wanted to have answered. They didn't want the truth. It was just a formality, a nicety. And now we're at a time where the awareness around being authentic is starting to become more widespread.
Yeah.
But so is the fact that so many people are struggling so fucking hard that we can no longer afford to not actually care.
Yeah. There's a maturation happening in our culture, I think, in our society. And I literally thought that today in the dark, in the middle of the sweat lodge with 20 people from around Ithaca, diverse group of people, and with a Dene elder, as you know.
Uncle Pete. What's up, Uncle Pete?
Navajo elder, pouring the sweat for us, and so leading the ceremony and the prayer as he was taught, by his relatives and his family. And so in there, I thought that, man, I was like, how is there refinement happening, How is there, because I feel like everything's just speeding up, so much, man, so much. And I don't know, it's kind of weird to talk about. I've said it like this, but within the past month or something, or maybe even 2 weeks, it feels like something changed with the machines, man. It sounds funny,
Dude, I'm right there with you, dude.
It's singularity. I hear this word and I don't really know.
It's very possible. A lot of brilliant minds can say, "Oh, it looks like we're living in a simulation," and then other people are take it or leave it. But until you've looked at the evidence or whatever that means, I know I come from a background of a lot of psychedelia, and that opened me to synchronicity on a scale and on a way that makes divine order undeniable. I like to say I don't even need faith anymore around that.
Yeah.
I would be a fool to not believe.
Yeah.
I would be willfully ignorant. So, but yeah, it's getting to this point now. It's getting so bonkers that almost anyone and everyone has to go, what is going on? It's starting to feel like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, with the drones and the elections and the wars and the economy and the blah and the blah and the blah. And then that all, in a way, is taking a backseat to our personal lives, which is...
And did you hear this, too? Like, there's so many promising things, but just as, like, a small example, and I almost brought this up in the lodge today, but it's been just in my awareness as, you know, but literally I heard this just within the last few days, that in 1 month's time, there's, like, a good chance that, or I don't know what level of chance there is, that food colorings will be illegal in the United States of America.
I have heard that. I've heard
by February, you know, thanks to, you know, RFK Jr. getting, you know, like momentum behind this Make America Healthy Again, you know, and all the power that's behind that and the potential that's behind that. I'm really excited, you know, and Tree and I have been discussing that, a close friend of mine, and, you know, he's like, I don't know, man, if we could change the system from within, you know, he's like, I'm very skeptical about that, but I hear for people that have faith, such as yourself, Jaya, you know, because I have to whatever degree. I don't know what degree faith I have in that, but I know that there are some people that are at the forefront right now in the political realm that I have a lot of respect and admiration for, or at least trust their character. Mm-hmm. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being the leader of that group, Tulsi Gabbard being up there in a huge way. You know, I've had respect for her as a warrior sister for a long time, you know, and I trust her. And Vivek Ramaswamy, I think he's a smart guy, and I think he's got good ideas, and you know, whoever else. I'll just name those names for now, but I'm just grateful to see that there is some I think I'm hopeful. You know, it's like have to be hopeful.
It's all happening at the same time. Like the disheartening and the heartening are coming through the same fire hose, mixed together.
Right.
There are a lot of things I think that are really, really inspiring that are going on now, and I do feel hopeful. For a lot of the things that you just said, I think that there could be kind of a new age of humanity dawning where the systems are more a reflection of our needs and our potential rather than something that's harvesting us and using us as a resource. It starts to feel that way. You know, I felt really disheartened, or, you know, what's the more, like, almost like I woke from the American dream in my late teens when I kind of came into my psychedelia phase, and I met some military guys that told me 9/11 was not what I thought it was. And I was like, well, if they can keep a secret like that, and I walk around and everyone thinks it's one thing and I hear it's something else, and to me it's pretty obvious that what else is being kept a secret. So it's almost like someone took me to the edge of the rabbit hole and pushed me in.
Yeah.
And almost like the one dude, I almost wanted to go back because it's been hard to live this way with that awareness and what that means. And at the same time, it's made my life so much more beautiful and rich and interesting. So hey, it just is what it is, whether you know it or not. Like, the truth is, it is without you, with or without you.
Yeah.
Although we would like you to just come on in. Someday you'll join us too, as John Lennon says.
Yeah, right. And you just made me think of an oldie but goodie, and I'll just bring this up, and then this could be a segue too, because you and I could both have a tendency to talk about the world and kind of get kind of meta in our analysis of life and our personal journeys, you know, and to just kind of, I know I have that tendency very strongly, and I'm grateful that I care about humanity so much. I'm not grateful when I kind of hemorrhage my psychic energy, you know, like to instead of kind of taking care of my own, being more kind of grounded in my own day to day, you know, and I do look forward to calling that in more in my life personally. But just to harken back to that, the oldie but goodie, you know, that you kind of referenced offhand, you know, without directly saying it. That's the thing about the American dream. You have to be asleep to believe it, right?
Was it Carlin, right?
And is it George Carlin? That original? Yeah. And in a way, that kind of, you know, like spiritual journey a lot of times in Vedanta, you know, in the Vedic, the philosophy, ancient philosophy of India, which is the spiritual philosophy I'm most connected with or fluent in, you could say. You know, it's a lot the metaphor of dream. You know, Maya is the great, you know, the great mother is also, you know, just the creatrix of the illusion, you know, and she's everything, and and she could seduce us into believing her, you know, and lately Jaya's been believing him so much, you know, believing himself, you know, believing his thoughts, his mind, and that's the greatest seduction, right? So we do that collectively together without social media and without, you know, our kind of programming, our biological primate biology, you know, programming, like to compete, right, for resources and for lovers and all that comes with life on Earth and the body.
I've heard it described that way. Bill Hicks said it so good too. But other spiritual texts, it's like we all kind of engaged in a game, or maybe some kind of dream or some kind of like state, and it was meant to be something that we explore ourselves through, and we kind of forgot that we're playing the game, and we start getting mad at each other, and like it's like you're playing Monopoly, but you forget that you're playing Monopoly, and you think that it's real, in the way that we treat each other, and yeah, I think that's a good perspective to take, to explore as a thought experiment at the very least.
Yeah.
Because taking things too seriously probably doesn't help as much as you think.
Yeah.
And talking to myself, because God knows I get bent out of shape on the reg over the dumbest shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's, first of all, again, like a sign of maturity, personal, you know, speaking to you as a personal reflection, that's a sign of your maturity, willingness to admit that. And I think, like we were saying, as we opened up this conversation, it's a sign of the collective maturity, hopefully, the maturation, right? To see that we're, keep it realism, I used to say, is my religion, you know, keep it realism. And I think we're starting to become more into that, just being authentic, you know? And, yeah.
I wonder if our fascination with reality TV, it points to that in a way, because it used to be like very, very theatric. Like there was like that extra layer of reality that we like to escape to. And then all of a sudden, even the things that we watch for entertainment are more reality based. And, you know, not just wanting to watch a musician perform, but also wanting to know their personal life. Like, that's like the thing with tabloids and stuff. It's supposed to be like, it's not just John Mayer. It's John Mayer on vacation, like watching him eat fish sticks or whatever. It's just like, who cares? He's an entertainer. But no, it's the people behind that we're starting to really focus on. And like politicians, characters being called into question. And in a way, that maturation it coincides with the ability to be aware, because it was just newspapers and snail mail not that long ago. I mean, really, in the grand scheme, the fact that we can have a phone in our pocket and so much is being shown and seen is so new.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, things have just accelerated at such a tremendous rate.
Yeah.
And yeah, so buying into the dream, you were going to talk about some of the health stuff I'm dealing with, right? You were going to ask me about that and have that be a focus.
Well, we kind of glide in, you know, like that, but also to create a little context for our viewers, a lot of people I imagine that watch this will know you already, might have some kind of idea, but for maybe someone that doesn't, for someone who's never heard of you before or met you in real life, can we just like zoom back a little bit and just give us like a brief overview? And this is probably like not the easiest thing to do, but of your life and what brought you to this chair?
Yeah, well, my friendship with Theo brought me to this chair. Thanks for being my brother. Respect, man. And you know what? And I will say that thing that I said right before we started too, because I like archetypes and the tarot and everything. And I said this to Theo the other day, and then again right before we started the video. But I feel like, you know, the like 3 archetypes like really stand out in his personality, and it takes one to know one. You know, like in this context, like I feel like the resonance with you, and the most beautiful one is the first one, I think, just because I feel like the childlike like gaiety that you exude. You know?
Gay?
See, that's it. The
How
fool.
could I not?
The fool. You know, and the zero and the tarot. You know, and I feel like you really, you know, and it's a very like leonine, like Leo kind of quality. I forget where Leo is in your chart.
Right.
I have. Oh, your ascendant, right. That totally makes sense. You know, my moon, my Venus, and my North Node are all in Leo.
Wow.
And my sun, I'm a Cancer, but my sun is in the 5th house, so the house that's ruled by Leo. But almost all the rest of my chart is in the air signs. But you know, that Leo energy is that lion. It's the nobility. It's the emperor. You know, it's like the king, right? But it's also like the fool because it's like the child king. You know,
Right.
like the Leo energy is like the child king. And then the magician. You know, it's like, okay, I've done a lot of psychedelics. Okay, I want to explore consciousness. Okay, I want to ask deeper questions. You know, I want to remember. How do you call it again? But you know, synchronicity. I want to remember that. You know. That's the magician. I want to hold my new ankh, you know, my newest little spiritual symbol in my hand while I do this conversation, you know, and it's just like playing with these archetypes, you know. So it's just cool to start by that. My friendship with Theo brought me to this chair, and also, you know, sharing those qualities, you know, the quality of the fool, you know. Am I willing to remember, like, okay, I'm just starting, you know, every moment is a new beginning, you know, like friends are reminding me when I'm in desperation, calling them, like, just so intensely depressed, as people know I'm dealing with, you know, as I, which we'll get to. But, so to start, other than that, though, I was born and raised in New York City, in Queens, Jamaica, Queens.
I see it come out sometimes, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Comes out sometimes. And I was just down there for Christmas. I was just down there for 9 days, the longest I've been down there in a while, for a long time. And it's been interesting. Spent a lot of time with my dad lately. And he's really been showing up for me, you know, in my time of emergent need. And it's brought some tenderness between us. It's still, you know, challenging in a lot of ways. But my dad's a retired lieutenant in the fire department. Pretty intense character for those that know him or have met him. Yeah, so I grew up in, you know, I'm the oldest of 4. My dad adopted me. He met my mom when I was 1. They got married when I was 3. So, you know, he's my stepdad, but he's been my dad. So,
He's not your blood dad?
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, you don't remember that? Because I know I've told you that, but I understand
when
why
I met him,
but you could see it. What?
I thought you guys had a lot in common. Like you're kind of like
looked alike.
You're kind of
He's like Sicilian Italian. Though.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but there's some kind of like vibe. Yeah. It's like kind of like a razor sharp. It might be kind of like the fireman thing where he's just like sussing stuff out and like really aware, but also like a jovial. He's a gentleman. He was making everyone feel comfortable.
Wow.
At least in my experience, I met him once.
He's got 6 planets in Scorpio, bro. He could show up how he wants to show up. You know.
I dated one of those. Woo.
Yeah, he's you know, it's interesting to hear people, and it's humbling for people to be like, your dad is intense, you know? You sure you're not projecting? And it's like, whatever, you know? And there's a good chance, you know, my parents are going to watch it, so that's great. But, you know, like I'm pretty open about stuff and whatever. But anyway, yeah, so the oldest of 4, and my sisters, you know, so I often say, like, I'm a different kind of civil servant, you know, because my sister's a nurse. She's a nurse educator now in pediatrics, I think, is the department she's still in. So she teaches other nurses. And then my brother Dominic is a firefighter, and Tommy, the youngest, is a firefighter, and he was a firefighter first. He was like, everybody knew it was his dharma, you know, the Sanskrit word for his like duty, his, you know, his destiny to be a fireman since he was like a little boy, you know, that little kid knew.
He went straight from the toys to the real thing.
for real, like in a way, you know. So that's blessed for him and his life. And so I'm an uncle, and my mom, Bridget, was the youngest of 7, and my parents still live in the house that they bought when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
They moved into when they got married when I was 3, and I went to all-boy Catholic high school, which is a lot more common when you kind of grow up in the hood than, you know, where there's like stabbings at the public school, and you know, in town, you know, it depends on.
I told that story last night. I had the same experience. I went to a public school in Tacoma, Washington. It was really dangerous and violent, and opted for a Christian school for what I thought was my own safety. So I had a similar. It was not New York City, not Queen, but it was Tacoma, Washington, and it was still pretty dangerous. So so you went to Catholic schools.
We should not only are we wearing a beanie cap right now, represent, but we also went to.
We got so much in common. Well, look,
yeah, bro.
We also got a cup that's a hue of orange and yellow. To our health.
Jaya.
So yeah, just keeping it moving along. Back to your.
Yeah. I was just gonna say something there about. I forget what it was. Yeah, about the high school. You know, I'm really grateful, man. Like, not only I've been having a flare up lately with my gut problems, which really affects the mood and stuff, but it also affects the skin, so it like shows up on my face. But I had acne like bad. That was a big part of my life experience too, man. Like I had like severe acne growing up, you know, and as a kid. So I remember like counting my blessings that my mom put in the friggin' application for Archbishop Malloy, the all boys school. I wanted to go to St. Francis Prep, the co-ed school, you know, and I was like, Mom, what? You chose Malloy, you know? And then like a year later or a few months later, I was like giving thanks and praise because I didn't, you know, because it was
all boy?
Because it was all boy Catholic high school. Yeah. It's the next level, right? It's co-ed now, but I was grateful, man, for multiple reasons, but especially because I was like so insecure to be around like females, you know, like to have like the level of acne that I had, like boils, you know, like if I like I'm kind of looking at my peripheral right there, you know, like if I put my head below my heart, like I started getting into yoga, you know, so, and that's a segue to another part of my journey, you know. But when I was 15, I asked Santa Claus for a subscription to the Yoga Journal and a yoga ball and a yoga mat, you know. Thanks, Madonna, represent. She's not dead, so I don't know why I'm giving a shout out to heaven, but she might be. I don't know.
She's somewhere.
She's somewhere. But, you know, but for real, like, you know, like it became mainstream, and I was like, yoga, what is that? Yoga Journal? Can I have a subscription to that, Santa? You know, I asked my mom for. So, but I would do yoga, and my head would be below my heart, and my chin and nose would throb, you know, because of the boils that were on my face. Wow. It was like just like a pretty acute level of pain, you know.
And so that helped me. Right?
It's pretty formative. Yeah. Exactly, bro. Because it made me, you know, in some ways more humble, you know, in good ways, but also more like hyper vigilant, friggin' self-conscious, you know, and like self-aware and self-obsessed, you know. How do I look? Like I'm doing it like today, looking at the reflection in the camera, you know. It's just like this often like checking myself out, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's one way in which my dad, in his kindness and his wisdom, his common sense, you know, his maturity, would be like, son, you know, like, why are you looking at yourself so much? You know, like, don't be so self-obsessed. Who cares? You know, you got a healthy body. You know, there's ways that this feels good to just share right now. Mm-hmm. You know, there's ways in which it could be like an empowering way to share that. And instead, brother, like what I got at home was like my dad shitting on me for fucking looking in the mirror so much, you know? Like he would like he would chastise me. That's like the most accurate use of that word right now. You know, I would be... I'm not, you know, embellishing when I say I would be, you know, somewhat severely chastised for looking in the mirror. Yeah. In this kind of bitingly sarcastic way of like, ooh, how do I look? Like making fun of me, you know? And it's coming from my dad. And my dad wasn't making fun of me because I have acne, or he wasn't making fun of me because he hated me. You know, he was making fun of me because he saw me doing something that wasn't serving myself, you know? Right. Like I was being self-obsessed. Like I was focusing on something that's negative, that's not going to make me feel better. Right. But he was putting me down. You know, he's putting me down, and I love you, Dad, man. I know you're going to watch this because, you know, and we're becoming bros on, like, a whole different level, and you taught me so much, man. Like, that mofo is tough, man, you know, and I don't know, for people that know the model of the Enneagram, you know, but that's been something, like, along with astrology and tarot and all these ways of, like, self-knowledge, you know, but the Enneagram, or the 9 personality types, has been huge in my kind of, like, self-awareness, you know, and to be a 1, the reformer, or the perfectionist, you know, like, I totally see this personality show up in to huge degrees as a 1 on the Enneagram, you know, a 1 with a 2 wing, the caregiver wing. And you know, it's so much like from my dad, you know, am I doing it right? Am I doing it good enough? Am I doing it right? You know, and there's virtue in that. There's obvious virtue in that, you know, there's obvious virtue in that. And that's, you know, that could create, you know, Nazi life coach kind of archetype, you know,
Yeah.
which is what I called myself when I first went to Asia with my best friend Cheryl at the time. And I was like, into Thailand in a long time ago, you know, in our early 20s. And I was like, oh, I'm such a Nazi life coach friend, you know, because I'm so hard on myself. So I project it onto others, you know. So I've been so hard on myself in a lot of ways, and mostly in the spiritual way, you know, because it's like, okay, what do I know? I want to be enlightened. I want to wake up.
So let's talk about like what was the first thing? You got 2 firefighter siblings, a nurse sibling. Why did you? What got you going on?
Oh yeah, and then I called myself a different kind of civil servant. You know, I'm saying you know a lot. You know,
I do, but maybe I don't, and that's why I'm asking. Like, I'm learning. I just learned some interesting things about you in the last few minutes.
Nice.
But yeah,
like
I said,
I like how you worked with that.
What was it? Was there an event or a person in your life or something that catalyzed this?
Good question. I mean, going to Malloy, Archbishop Malloy, there was the Marist Brothers Retreat House. You know, it was a Marist Brothers school, and they were, which is pretty cool. You know, in the sense of, because I have reverence for the divine feminine, for Ma. I like that balance. You know, I'm not wearing my yin yang ring now, but the balance, and the Marist Brothers are brothers, you know, so Catholic Christian brothers that have extra reverence for Mother Mary. And even though at maybe age 10 or 11, I already started to be like, yeah, this Catholic thing, this Christian thing, you know, the concept of hell, that turns me off hugely. Even at such a young, I think I was about 9 or 10 or 11, where I was like, not for me. Not for me. Imaginary friend for grown-ups. You know, that's how I protected myself from these concepts of God that were so, you know, the potential for dogma, the potential for believies. You know, I love Louis C.K., one of my favorite stand-up comics. Yeah. He's like, my believies. I think that's the first time I heard that.
That's what he says, like your beliefs as you like dash the. It's like a blankie for your beliefs. Yeah.
My believies. Yeah. And. Yeah, but even though I really had a lot of respect for this place, you know, these 200, 300 acres right on the Esopus River in the foothills of the Catskills over there. And so it was like a 2-hour bus ride up from the city. So it was like
a camp?
It was like a camp, and it was like an escape, and I would volunteer there with special people. It's the first time I like hooked up with a girl, you know, like all girls schools would go there, and at night we'd go play like, what's that word? I was going to say darkness.
Flashlight tag or hide and seek or...
Yeah, but the more kind of...
Manhunt.
Yeah, but the more sit down, like boys and girls play together, like truth or dare type of stuff. Dare. You know, stuff like that.
But you said it was like a... People
but we volunteered by day, pushing wheelchairs and even wiping behinds. You know, I was like 15 years old.
And then you hooked up?
And then at night, we go with the other counselors and we get free time.
So it was another counselor?
Yeah, bro.
I'm
So we're like sophomores in high school from like Brooklyn and Queens, and we take our respective buses up there. Yeah, of course you could. Yeah. Well played, sir. Well played. Respect. Or as my brother would do, he'd be like, well played, well played. Whoop. That's how we would play each other. He'd be like, all right, no doubt, no doubt. My brother Tom.
One more, ready?
That one we got to work together, so it's not as much of a burn.
We got to practice.
But yeah, it was
Episode
like, so
2.
That was formative for me to be able to go there and also to work with people less fortunate than yourself, you know?
Helping and serving. And
it was definitely very formative for me to work with people with Down syndrome and people with severe autism and people with severe MR, mental retardation. You know, I was exposed to a lot there. And the brothers are pretty chill there. And
what do you mean?
Like the brothers that work there. Some brothers like just live there. Some of them wear like the thing, like
but
the
they're
straight up
Marist
black
brothers
thing.
or no?
The
the brothers. Okay.
Yeah, Yeah.
They're like people that are like devotees.
They run the camp.
They're not the original Marist brothers. It's a group of people. And when you say brothers, you're referring
it's a
to a kind
denomination.
of okay,
Like the Jesuits.
Got it.
You've heard of Jesuits?
So when you say brothers, they're not. They're kind of committed to that path. They're not brothers, but they are brothers.
Right. They're not biological brothers to each other. Right.
Got
But
it.
they're in that lineage, like nuns.
Yeah, got it.
So they're the male equivalent of nuns. So anyway, that place was cool for me. And then I started to get into the rave scene. So I remember as I got older, 18, 19, I graduated. I started to go to Queens College. I stayed home for my first 2 years of university. I went to Queens College because I was so into the nightlife and the dance culture of New York City and MDMA and raves and just going around Manhattan and the Bronx and Staten Island and New Jersey and to all these parties, you know, as we called them, and I got really into that, and really into dance culture, like break dance culture, and stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
And the music, you know, and the transcendent experience of music, like dream trance was the genre that I loved the most.
Yo,
you know?
with the right medicine and the right music and the right people, you can get really lifted, man. Lifted. I'm there with you, dog. A lot of my spiritual, you know, nirvana, how good can life get? How good can it get? If it can get better than this, God, Japanese, you know what I mean? Like
the Japanese word is satori, which is a great word to drop in here, you know, and to mention, because that's what I was after. I was in some ways, and in some kind of humbling, kind of reframing of these past few months of intensity, people were like, Jaya, is there a part of you that's always chasing the high, you know? And the Japanese word is satori in the Zen word, which means glimpse of enlightenment, you know, or taste of wakefulness, like wakeful, blissful presence that's absolutely consumed in this moment. That's all, this is all there is. And that's been what I've chased. So shortly after I transferred as a junior to New Paltz, I got my degree from New Paltz in 2003, and in a bachelor's in anthropology. I was like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I know I want, you know, I'm at this institution of higher learning, and what kind of learning, what kind of education, what kind of mind do I want? I want an open mind. That's all I could say about myself. I don't know what else I want to do. Right. I'm not somebody who's into, I admire you guys. I'm in here in your studio, and I'm like, look at all this technology that Bob's got going on, and look at all these nuances of all these cameras and all these audios and everything. And I don't have such a persuasion in a lot of ways to create. And I don't want to short sell myself when I say that, but you know, I see a lot of my peers around me that create on such a different level, like in a physical, tangible way. But what was I talking about there? But open-minded, that's what kind of mind I want. I want an open mind. What's going to help me have an open mind more than anything else? Anthropology, the study of other cultures. And to try as best we can, even though it's really, really hard, it's called ethnocentrism, to try as much as possible to identify and eradicate ethnocentrism, thinking that my ethnicity, my culture, my background, you know, my life experience,
your perception, your perspective, your way of life.
Yeah, for sure. Ethnocentric. It's like all about me and my people, you know, and it's like we try to get rid of that. Like Margaret Mead, like one of the most famous anthropologists back in the day. She was the woman that went there to Papua New Guinea and stuff and was there with those cultures, you know. But even these great anthropologists of yesteryear, it was so hard for them not to bring their own.
Yeah, you know, it seemed like academia. I wasn't around for this because I'm not that old, but like in the West, we thought like everyone else who wasn't white was a savage. You know what I mean? It's like
back in the day.
And you see some of the posters that were made, some of the propaganda posters depicting different races as different things, and we've been depicted that way ourselves by other nations, and we're what you're saying is like the opposite of that. Like how can we appreciate, accept, and
so I was like, anthropology. Here's a way I could get a degree. You know, I gotta get this, you know, like my parents are just like, dude, this is what you do, bro. You get a bachelor's degree. Right. And had I had a little bit more of a kind of open-minded or a different perspective, or if I lived in Ithaca, it's like, what? I could go to this 8-month, I could learn about my body and go to this 8-month massage school, or there's this famous herbalist here, Seven Song, I could do this like herb school, all this cool shit. Like when I moved here when I was 25 in 2006, I'm like, wow, there's so much stuff I could have done instead of just chasing this degree, and now I'm still every year annually deferring the the student loans that I have that I don't want to pay back because I don't focus that much on career and making money. But yeah, so I did that. I got my degree in anthropology, and then I lived shortly thereafter. I lived at a yoga ashram. I did this huge application to go to the Peace Corps, to Africa, the Peace Corps. Yeah, it was like a 10-month background check application process, and it was pretty intense. And I was like, so this was my mind at the time, 22 years old. I was like, all right, you know what? If I go to an ashram or a monastery and like learn how to meditate or learn how to really do yoga, then I'll get dialed in myself, and then I'll be able to go, because I had never traveled abroad in my life yet. And I was going to go for 27 months, for 3 months initiation training or whatever, and then 2-year commitment. I was going to go to 27 months to some fill-in-the-blank country in Africa. I wanted to go to Africa, but you don't get to pick where you go. Exactly. Wow. So this is what I was signing up for. And this is the kind of way I would push myself in my life, man, And then I was so hard on myself for how scared I was of traveling, because I used to have a phobia of traveling, kind of. And now look at me, I've traveled so much and all over. But I went to the ashram for like a month or two. And then while I was there, I found out that I didn't get, because of small legal issues, but enough to make me not qualify for the Peace Corps.
Wow.
Yeah. For getting arrested once.
Okay, it's only once. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Like what? Maybe I was like doing a peaceful protest, or I don't know. Like
I wasn't. I was shoplifting.
Hey.
But yeah, it was for the best, man, because I was like, it was biting off way more than I could chew. Yeah. So I wound up living at the ashram.
So that was your plan B.
28 months. Well, it turned into my plan B, yeah, and that's where I got the name Jaya. My birth name is Jason, so my family calls me Jay or Jason, and so I used to sign emails Jay with the last A in parentheses, the optional A, Jay or Jaya, and I got the name Jaya, and then I became a yoga teacher. I did my yoga teacher training out in California at the Grass Valley, California Shivananda Ashram. Wow. 1 month, like yoga certification course, and which in a way is like laughable, like 1 month you become a yoga teacher, but it's like just an intensive thing. And
I was already living in a month.
Yeah, and I was already living at the ashram, so I got a lot of chance to practice teaching as a volunteer, just as an ashramite. And so I learned a lot about community living. I learned a whole different level of kind of immersion in, again, like Vedanta, like the yogic philosophy. Cheers. And yeah, man. So that's a bit of my background life. And then after that, I traveled for a bit, and I did different things here and there. I lived different places. I don't know how much to touch on.
Well, I know. I'm going to try to like bring certain things out of you.
Bring it out, baby.
For the sake of brevity, because like, trying to do like an autobiography in a couple hours is impossible. But there was some time in India. There was some time with Amma. And I know that there was some time in Shasta that was very, very formative for you, and I know that's formative for specifically because that's kind of where you started your journey with SSRIs.
Yeah,
and I do want to talk about that today with you.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, so like you said, there's a lot of time in India. 8 times I've been there, averaged about 4 months each time. So that 8 times 4
32.
is. Thank you. Yeah, like 2 years and some months and
2.5, yeah.
Yeah, and Amma being part of that. I met Amma before I ever went to India, but it was cool. I was trimming ganja. I'll just tell that story briefly because it's sweet. Because it was my first year trimming ganja, right? Mm-hmm. And it was right after these guys I worked for in Mendocino, these 2 surfer dudes, that I got hooked up with through an old friend, a sister friend from Ithaca, who first knew I was out on the West Coast. And she was like, yo, my friend Jaya wants to come to work, and they just had this huge raid happen, like a huge raid, man. Like they were processing it for weeks while we were at the trim table, and I'm learning how to trim, I'm like awkwardly with the scissors, For those that don't know, you curate the ganja, and you cut them with scissors, you know, the buds, and
It's
like hippie boot camp.
You could
we used to
spend
call it.
8, 10, 12, 14 hours, 16 hours a day in a chair with your homies, doing one thing, and doing it quickly and doing it good. And it's a cool experience. I had some good times and some questionable times.
For sure, man. And for me, it was abundant AF. You know, at that time, it was $2.75 a pound, and I was slow as heck. But when I eventually got up to a pound a day, which was even for like 14 hours or 16 hours, it's like $2.75 a day. It praised Jah. You know, it was so
it's like
blessed.
back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s or something. It's
yeah,
like
2008 was my first year trimming. And that's when Amma was. And Amma, as you may know, her ashram on the West Coast is in San Ramon. So it's in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. And she would host a retreat there, like a 3-day retreat. So it was cool. My first time meeting Amma was going from trim camp with the sister that I was trimming with, a super sweethearted woman whose name I don't remember. But we went together. I think we carpooled together. Maybe I carpooled with her. And one of the guys who was like generous to a fault, you could maybe say, one of our bosses, but like super cool, it's like surfer dude, and I'm like, bro, you overpaid me like $60, you know, and he's like, oh, that's for Amma, that's Amma blessing, you know, so he like gave me a tip to like go be with Amma. It was so sweet, yeah, and so we went together, and for this like 3 or 4 day immersive experience with this amazing guru. And a living incarnation of the Divine Mother. She's so amazing. My Instagram, my Facebook is the same name, Jaya Totality, Jaya Totality. And I recently put, just for anybody that might be in South India, that her yatra, her South Indian yatra is going to be starting in a few weeks. And so I put those dates up on my Instagram, just for people to be tuned in, because to be with a living master, you know, like to be with the Dalai Lama, he came to Ithaca years back, and it's great.
I think he was here recently, actually.
Wow. Oh yeah, on the DL. I think I heard that after the fact.
Because there's the new library, and they were like, or with
the
new
inauguration.
Yeah.
But to be with Amma, to me, is almost unprecedented. I would have to think about that, because now I've been blessed to sit with some great masters that not that many people know about, and so many people know about Amma. But in some ways, it's an unprecedented experience for me. The level of spiritual stature and eminence that she embodies is just so profound. So that was a blessed experience to be able to be with Amma.
Right on, man.
And then, you know, my American guru back in the day, who I first met in the flesh, was there's been so many, it's so humbling and interesting to live in a country that's freaking 3,000 miles wide, and to be bi-coastal, you know, to have such a connection with the East Coast, but such a connection with the West Coast. And literally I have half my life on both coasts, and that's true to this day. I mean, most of my people are in Ithaca, if I had to be more than anywhere else, but a close runner-up is Mount Shasta, California. Or people that were affiliated with me and my guru at the time out there, Davidji. Shout-outs to him, who was a great master for what he was at the time, and full respect to him.
Which to me is interesting, and I'm just going to kind of chime in based on my limited understanding, is that you had a lot more access. Like if you're in an Amma thing, there's maybe like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, or thousands, and you might get like a little time with her. But in a smaller setting, with to say Davidji, you could be like spending like hours a day with this person, even like lots of one-on-one time. So it's a very different experience.
Yeah, for sure. And with Davidji at the time, like when I first met Davidji, you know, like 2013 Jaya, right, is like, okay, but this is the real deal. We're talking non-duality. It's all one. This is only the pure teachings. There's no do this mantra. There's no look at this god or this goddess. There's no this Hindu ritual or that Hindu ritual or Buddhist ritual. It's like, again, that part of, you know, Jaya that might be like imaginary friend for grown-ups, you know, that contemptuous for some of this small-mindedness, you know, just the arrogance here that might be like, yeah, if it's not the pure non-dual truth that all is one, Advaita Vedanta it's called, Advaita, pure non-duality. You know, there's only the I.
Let's go there for 1 second.
The I, you know, it's called the Aham Svarana in Sanskrit.
Aham.
A-H-A-M, Aham, which is I. And Svarana, the effulgence of. It's the effulgence of I. That's what this tattoo, you know, the I.
The I and I.
I and I is how
Is
the Rasta call
Is
it.
the camera seeing that?
But anyway, but that's the holy hill of Arunachala, which is in South India, which is my main kind of Mecca, the supreme Mecca of my heart, I used to call it. And that's where Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, many people that know spirituality know Ramana, that name Ramana, just a great, great sage from India who left the body in 1950. And he's the being that Devaji supposedly just had this full transmission and, became, bestowed upon by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. But this is the Mecca of the whole world, this small town in South India called Tiruvannamalai, with this holy hill of Arunachala, 2,700 feet, 2,600 feet tall,
It's
just a small hill.
to medium, yeah.
A small to medium hill, but profound, bro.
Yeah.
I've never, even in Mount Shasta, I don't have this thing with Shasta like some people have. I mean, I have a thing with it, but not like Arunachala, where it's
Right.
I feel this mass of rock.
It's like
I don't know
humming.
what it is,
It's like humming.
but it's like humming.
Yeah.
As it were. And Ramana Maharshi is just such a great sage who just lived so silently and so simply. He just exuded, just the presence and the wakefulness, kind of like Amma does, but on a whole different level. He's like just in the sense of like a whole different persona. He was just like, I'm in silence for 18 years straight. People come and they want to prostrate to me, and I'm just like doing my own thing. And eventually, okay, I'm going to write down some stuff. Okay, Atma Vichar.
It's for you guys.
Yeah, Atma Vichar, self-inquiry. Who am I? Use the mind to focus on the mind. And to me, that's the ultimate sadhana, the ultimate spiritual practice.
Well, that's what a lot of
It's like
other
self-inquiry.
philosophers have pointed
Right.
towards this, like, know
Know
thyself.
thyself. Know thyself, like the
Self-awareness.
temple of Adelphi, yeah.
Which
Know
is interesting
thyself.
because I do want to talk about non-duality a little bit. I've explored it as like kind of like a question or an inquiry. Like you could say because duality means two. It's the two-ness, the separation of one and the other, and then it's saying it's not that. Right? Which is kind of funny because you could just say the singularity, but it's not the singularity either. Yeah. It's a little bit more of holding the awareness of the self as a witness, and then the Maya or the matrix of reality, and then not getting so caught up in the separation that you're being crushed by it, but that you're able to kind of surf that wave. Right. That's how I perceive non-duality. It's kind of an isness, like a beingness that's like it's groovy,
right,
and vibey and accepting and loving and able to like hold the oneness vision whilst operating in the 3D plane.
And similar to this, bro, because you called this the I and I, right? Which of course we know from like Rasta slang, I and I, and that's a cool way to say it. And there's some truth in that. And to me, when I think of I and I think of little I, like, okay, I'm just this, this small ego, but may I remember to be in service to thee, O Lord, when the bhakti part of me comes out, the devotional part, when I want that flavor of devotee and Lord, lover and beloved.
Right.
Because
it's
that's
a
sweet part. That's a vibe.
Yeah.
And in Sanskrit, of course, anyway.
Worship,
the yoga, beautiful. The 4 paths of yoga, of union, the way to yoke, to be unified with. And I'll just say this briefly, and then I'll just wrap that up. I'll wrap that up first. So this is not really I and I. It's not the same thing as like the Rasta. It's not meant to be said like that. It's just the I. It's just the aham svarana. It's the effulgence of I. But for some reason, and for me, my logical mind, has kind of dissected why it is. It's because some mantra is too high vibrational. Like you can't really teach somebody a monosyllabic mantra.
Right.
Like if it's just like if someone's just like, all I want to do is cross my eyes and look up at my third eye. It's like so high frequency that it's like too much to hold, So it's meant to just be like, I. You just say it twice.
Okay.
It's just a simple.
It's an extra. It's like the same thing again.
It's like, just the same thing again. It's just because one eye is like almost too much. Like,
respect.
Respect. Yeah. I. You know what I'm saying?
I love the way you explain that, man.
Thank you. But
I feel that.
But yeah, bro, the 4 paths of yoga, and then we'll go back to Devaji, okay?
Before we move on from the I and I thing, because and thank you for correcting me, because I kind of assumed, even though that is Rasta, the way that and if I'm wrong, this is just me not knowing. When Rastas say I and I, people that are in the reggae culture that I've been around, the way I perceive that is they say, you are me.
Yeah.
I is I.
Yeah.
We are the same.
Yeah, right.
Is that right?
I think so.
That's
There's
accurate.
different ways to, you know,
Like I and I.
nobody can take ownership of that, like, philosophically. You know what I mean? Excuse me. So it's
Oneness?
Like, so
No, I came up with it first.
So I like the way that you say that, yeah, because that was just one small way of me saying it, like this is the small I and the big I and like that. But in a lot of ways, it's like, yeah, there's only the one I. It's the seer and that which is seen, right? So no matter what, it's like it's the conceptualizer and the concept. You know, there's so many ways to flip that.
Yeah, and there's other things in Vedic, other religions. You know, because the Satori is like more like the Buddhist. Is that Buddhist Satori?
Well, it's a Zen word. It's a Japanese
Zen.
word, yeah, from Buddhism. Yeah, Zen Buddhism, but it just means a glimpse of wakefulness, of enlightenment.
What do they call it in Hindu? There's a word for that too. It's like when it's like the observer and the observed start to melt into one.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of words. I don't know, but
There's a word for that when it's like when the witness and the witnessed start to merge.
yeah, I'm sure we could stumble upon it. But in a way, nibbanic peace, nirvana, you know, it's like
You know, I heard where that word nirvana came from, and once again, if I don't know, I don't know. But this is where I heard it came from. After you've like had like a fire, and it's been burning for a long time.
samadhi.
Samadhi, that's the word. That's the word. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. Yes, thank you.
It's very similar to Satori. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Samadhi.
Samadhi, Satori. It's almost the same.
Right.
Syllabic type thing. So like, but the word nirvana, I heard is like you had a fire going for a while, and it all kind of burns down. And it's like it's been a good fire that like did a nice job, and like the ash is white.
Yeah.
You seen that? It's like the texture on that white ash is like pure fluff. It's just like it's unlike
fluff.
anything.
Yeah.
And then it's like so delicate and so soft, and then the fire's cooled down, of course, and then you put your hands into it, and the feeling of moving through that fine silt that's like structured, that's falling apart in your fingers. That's supposedly where the word nirvana came from, is to put your hand into ash like that.
Cool.
Cool. I mean, because once again, like back to the thing around like the I and all that stuff, you can't really ever or the mantra, you can't ever describe it truly. You can't actually be it in the sense of like this is what it is. You can just kind of point to it. You can describe it.
Neti.
Neti.
Not this.
Not this. Yeah.
So the 4 paths of yoga, I just find that to me like the most brilliant. Any spiritual practice falls in my. You know, it's just my own mind's like interpretation, but falls into the 4 ways to feel in union.
Okay.
You know, and karma yoga, it's the path of selfless service. It's like, okay, to just remember everything is for thy will be done. Thy will be done. Everything is for God. You know, everything is whatever I do is for the Lord. You know, for the Divine Mother, for Krishna. You know, for Jesus Christ. Everything I do is I'm just a servant of Christ, you know? And so that's karma yoga, to always remember that action, volition, comes from that place of like, I am an instrument in the hands of the divine. So for people that might seem simple, they street sweepers, but they somehow they seem like they're at peace. It's like props to them, kudos to them. They are karma yogis.
That's legit.
That's legit.
That's
that's
legit.
absolutely legit. And then the path of devotion, like we were talking about, bhakti yoga. You know, the path
worship.
of the lover and the beloved, or the child and the mother, or the child and the father, or there's so many ways.
Mother and father.
The servant and the master.
Could it be the mother and the father, perhaps?
The mother and the father?
Yeah. Is that dynamic a potential within that space?
Potential, that would be like lover and beloved. If I'm the mother and you're the father, God, or I'm the father and you're the mother, goddess, then you're like, it would be... It's like lover and beloved. That gets more complicated, like to be like...
Because it's almost a more peer-esque. It's like on the same... Rather than there's a differential.
Right.
Okay.
Difference, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just exploring.
so it's beautiful, all the different human relations, and that brings back another beautiful kind of anthropology word, anthropomorphizing. It's like I'm anthropomorphizing my relationship with the mystery, the great mystery,
Right.
or reality with the
Right.
capital R. You know,
Right.
because we referenced reality before
Right.
as Maya, as the Matrix, and as some of the the illusory aspect of it, and it's also like reality is all of it. It's that which is perceiving it too. So
Yeah.
where's the capital R come in, and where's the R actually indeed lowercase,
Right.
so to speak, and so it's cool to think about all the play of the anthropomorphication of all that, or even bestial, whatever that word is, Hanuman,
Bestiality?
Hanumanji, or Ganesha, Ganapati,
Yeah.
like just the elephant-headed one,
Yeah.
or shamanically, it's like worshiping like this image of this great serpent. There's so many ways to interpret the divine. Right?
Everything becomes
So-
it becomes a symbol. It's
Yeah.
a key to understand the
Yeah.
multi-head,
Yeah.
the poly nature of
Yes.
the oneness, which
Yes,
is the many,
sir.
which
Yeah.
is the rainbow, which is blah, blah,
Right,
blah. Yeah.
right.
It's good vibes.
So karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and then there's the royal path, right? I like this word and I like this
Royal.
interpretation. This is Raja Yoga. So this is the path of willpower, the path of discipline, the path of warrior, the word that we spoke earlier. So this is the path of like the yogi, what a lot of people think of as a yogi. The Raja Yogi is somebody who does the 8 limbs, the Ashtanga. Did you do pranayama today? Did you do your Analoma Viloma?
wow.
Your alternate nostril breathing?
Right.
Like what level of tapas did you do? Tapas is the Sanskrit word for austerity.
I love tapas. I can't stop
Tapas
cracking
is fat.
jokes, dog.
Good.
Let's keep it
Yeah.
buoyant here. No, it's
Yeah.
already great though. Please continue. I don't want to look down
Diminish.
on this.
No, you're
I
not.
want to go with it.
Yeah, no, I feel that, brother. And I love tapas too. And in a way, it's like my tapas is to abstain from tapas sometimes when I'm on like one of my dietary things, which I've gone through many phases of with my body's, complex health and my digestive stuff. And so I've done so many fasts and so many abstinences, abstaining from. And I can't be hitting up that Spanish little finger food station. So that's the royal path, the path of yoga, of discipline.
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of people think of as yoga. So that's asanas, which is the physical stretches and
Right.
everything, and pranayama, the breath work. But it's also samantha, concentration. So, I'm sorry, pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. There's a bunch of words in there, and ways to taste the truth through the path of discipline. People say that's discipline. That's difficult and challenging and can be an obstacle because that's the path where one can generate some sense of spiritual pride, some sense of spiritual ego, especially because the more we channel our focus, our dristi is the Sanskrit word,
Right.
Our dristi,
Right.
our kind of like laser beam focus of the third eye, kind of, so to speak, or if you like look up at your, like to just kind of hold like that point with the eyes, you can kind of get into this like
I
focus
know that
space
word
and
where I'm
stuff.
doing a bouncing pose and you find a spot on the wall.
Yeah,
on the floor and you,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're doing like tree or something, Tadasana.
But it's almost like, oh, I'm more humble than you.
Right. Well,
It could go there.
It could go to like it could actually go. You could generate cities. Like
Superpowers.
Yeah, like psychic powers, and so it's in a way it's the most seductive path for like the spiritual ego.
power hungry.
To think of for the power hungry to think of holier than thou or better than or I have more willpower. That person doesn't do It's it could be seductive in that way. So some people say there's a potential for entrapment.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last path is the path that for a while Jaya's ego was like, this is the only one that makes sense. Like anybody who's not into this path, this whatever. And this is the path of self-knowledge or the path of wisdom. It's called jnana, J-N-A-N-A, jnana yoga, or G-N-A-N-A.
So it's almost like your name a little bit. So it's almost like, that's the one for me kind of thing.
There's so many words that I've never actually thought that before. But could be. Jaya means praise or hail or victory. So it's a very bhakti name.
Right.
It means like Jai Guru, like J-A-I. A lot of times the masculine is J-A-I and the feminine is J-A-Y-A. Or it could be like Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Pahimam, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Rakshamam. You know, praise to Ganesha. That we always start a lot of times in the Hindu mythology. You know, in the mantras and stuff, you start with Ganesh first because he'll be clearing the way with his tusks, like psh, 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 praise the Lord. You know,
My brother.
so jnana yoga is the path of wisdom, the path of self-knowledge. So the sadhana for that, like the spiritual practice for that, ultimately there is no practice. There's just the beingness. You know,
Right.
We're not human doings; we're human beings.
Right.
And the path of wisdom just reminds us of that always, now.
Right.
And, you know, and there is a way to practice it, and it's Atma Vichar, this is self-inquiry, you know, to use the mind, to turn the mind on the mind.
Because God has to be in there, right? So if you look at it close enough.
I'm drinking water. To whom does this thought arise? To me. Well, who am I? You know, I feel self-conscious now. The attention's on me.
Right.
To whom does this thought arise? To me. Who am I? And it's just that reorientation, you know, to bring it back. And Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi, such a brilliant master that he was, he would often talk about feeling the heart. So it can be, where we could already be up here.
Move the center down.
Right, move the center
of
down.
awareness.
So whereas a lot of times in Raja Yoga or in different kinds of sadhanas, this focus is on the drishti, is on the third eye, right? Is on the point between the eyebrows. And that's like probably the most quickest way to access like focus and concentration is to focus here. But it can keep the energy up here in the mind, you know, and so whereas Bhagavan Ramana, we're already doing a sadhana that can be so cerebral, like who am I? Who am I? You know, it's just looking at the mind. It's just every thought. To whom does this thought arise? To me. Who am I? Next thought ensues. To whom does this thought arise? To me. Who am I? And then to feel the heart while we ask that inquiry. So that's a brilliant way to kind of psychosomatic size it, you know, to embody it. And that's just one of the brilliant things about him. And Davidji, you know, to bring it back to Davidji in Mount Shasta in 2013, you know, Davidji being another teacher, an American teacher.
Was he like a gringo? Like, can you tell me more about?
Yeah, he was a very handsome. He looked a lot like Paul Newman, like, you know, Newman's Own, like everything. All proceeds go to charity. Yeah. You know, with the popcorn or with the Newman's O's. You know, he looks a lot like Paul Newman, man. Beautiful, shiny, bright, like Frank Sinatra, like blue eyes. Jewish, New York Jew. Yeah, he was a chiropractor for years. He was a chiropractor for like 25 years. And Faith, Sura was her name for a while. It's been a while since we called her that. So it all feels alien on my tongue. But Faith was a psychotherapist, his wife, for like 25 years. And she held so much space, man. She was a brilliant somebody to counsel with. I'd be like, Faith, I'm burning, you know, that's what we would call it. I'm in a burning phase when the ego flares up really bad. Like the sense of me, you know, me, it's all me. And then I feel like shit and I hate myself and all my mom and dad stuff is coming up. You know, my inner child, like all the different ways, right? All the different like vasanas, like the latent tendencies that we have.
That's interesting. We're pointing back to that earlier part of your thing with your dad, with you looking in the mirror, that in a way, the suffering of self-awareness can't be without self-importance. In a way, they are mutually dependent.
Dude, bro, first of all, beautiful job bringing that back, like, because that was a powerful moment in this conversation.
Yeah.
And just in this moment, like right before you said that, I'm just feeling like I've been so emotional lately, like I could just well up, like just saying it. But I'm really grateful for this conversation, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised, you know, like I said, looking you in the eyes before we turned on the cameras. It's like, bro, naturally, this is just going to unfold, man. And you're good at this, and I trust you, you know, like in your capacity to do this, you know. But beautiful job bringing that back to my dad in the mirror, because that was a powerful little symbolic part of this conversation. Yeah. And also it's a poignant thing to reference too. Yeah, like without self-importance, We can't have self-suffering.
The suffering through self-awareness cannot be without self-importance. Kind of a hyper focus on self. Taking yourself too seriously for like whenever I'm suffering. Usually, there's I'm taking myself too seriously right there in the room. With
Oh yeah. And bro, like I just fell off the wagon, like so to speak. Like the past few days and kind of since New Year's have been like profound suffering, man. And a lot of what I'm dealing with is because to just go back a bit, after being with David G for a few years, I was in a hard period, right? And David G kind of sat with me and he's like compassionately, and personably, I had his home phone number. I house sat. I would cat sit for them and sleep in their bed. They insisted I sleep in their bed. They're like, oh, Freya, their kitty, was used to like somebody being in the bed there, so they wanted me in their very own bed, and I had a very personal, intimate, like jovial joking. Talk about joking, like some of the irreverent jokes you made so far in this conversation. David G would say the most stupidest shit, bro, and then he would like crack up. He would like make himself crack up. His charisma was legit, bro, and his like guru freaking radiance was legit, man. And I hardly ever use that word guru, which is the Sanskrit word. It means dispeller of darkness, but I called him my spiritual teacher, but he, that's what he was, and he was a darn good one in a lot of ways, and perfectly imperfect, and still susceptible probably to some of these seductions of self-importance that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, in a way, like the pedestalization of a teacher.
Oh, yeah.
They can only prevent so much of that at some point. It's the responsibility of the student or anyone who's engaging with that person. Just like, come on, remember they're a human being. They're a human being.
Yeah. And
there's so much more, obviously, but just to say it's not easy to be a teacher, and no one's perfect. And if you're going to go down that road, just to be like aware of that.
I hope my hair looks amazing.
Beautiful.
So. Anyway, yeah, so David G compassionately was like, Jaya, bro, like you seem to be in this burn period, as we would call it, this burn, that's like when the ego was flaring up, it's, he's like, you're in this burn period and it doesn't seem to be getting better. He's like, and then he was like, this was at Thanksgiving. We're at a Sangha member's house where we had Thanksgiving. Priscilla, she was the hostess with the mostess. We had this beautiful, like, family. It was so much like family, man, and a lot of older people, mostly American, but like a mix of people, some international folks, and diverse on a few different kind of, like, parameters. And he took me in the back room, and he's like, Jaya, this burn period seems to be not getting better, so to speak, and I'm just paraphrasing now. And he was like, let me ask you something. You take supplements, right? And I'm like, yeah, I take a hell of a lot of supplements, And he's like, so say you take a serotonin supplement. He's like, it's all God, right? Like Ramakrishna, at that time, he was really getting into Ramakrishna. It was so much Ramana for so long, the path of like self-knowledge, the path of silence, the path of profound, like just the blissful presence of being. And then Ramakrishna came along. David G had this profound connection with Ramakrishna through this beautiful book called The Great Swan about the amazing master Paramahamsa Yogananda, who was Vivekananda's guru. And he was just this blissed out, intoxicated, like Hindu priest, that everything was Kali, everything was the Divine Mother, and so much the path of bhakti, of devotion, of lover and beloved. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, everything is God. He's like, everything is God, right? So what? You take a serotonin supplement, Like, so what? What's the big deal? And he kind of talked me into it. Not in a coercive way. I don't want to paint the picture like he kind of, like, I was this young, susceptible, like, 28-year-old or whatever I was at the time, like, student, and my guru was, my spiritual master.
He presented an idea to you that was,
he presented the idea.
Influential.
And then he almost kind of, like, suggested that someone else that I look up to in the Sangha was on it. And he's like, and then he started to say her name, and then he kind of stopped himself. But he gave me a big kind of heads up, he gave me a big clue that was helpful. And then later it turned out that he himself was on it. So he was being a little clandestine about his own use of it, and that,
Interesting.
forgive me, Dave G, for mentioning that, and whatever, take it or leave it to the audience listening to this, but
Wow.
yeah, interesting. Why, and you retract even, I'm surprised.
I find it interesting.
And it turned out that him and his wife, Faith, and like another woman in the Sangha who's also, sorry to, just turn up my volume here, but
good.
another person who leads satsang in the Sangha, so another kind of like spiritual teacher within the community, a woman I looked up to, like, and a grip of people, bro, like, and it is, I don't know, like, it's not quite 30% of the population.
I'm not saying it's bad or
almost
wrong.
30% of our Sangha, at least, was on SSRIs or antidepressants.
Yeah. I think it's
and then
almost that many people in the U.S.
One level of analysis is like, David G would be like, you become sponges for the collective suffering, and whatever can help this body-mind organism have it easier. That was his excuse for drinking sometimes, because he went through a phase with drinking, and there's so many ways to like look at things, right? And it's so easy to judge. And for a 1 on the Enneagram, it's so easy to judge, bro. And so it's so interesting to have this juxtaposition of personality characteristics where I can be indulgent and like, fuck the rules, like that part of me that's like, imaginary friends for grown-ups. Like I this personality, excuse me, can spit a lot, first of all. Second of all, can also, hold like a lot of different like perspectives and like stances and like personas, bro. And it's super humbling and super hard, So that's what I'm here to say. I don't know shit, like I just want to continue to I'm just going to pray for a second and just say like, I just want to continue to be like sincere on my path, man. It's like, I swear to God, like I kid you not, like Theo and the audience and whoever, like the past 2 days have been the closest I've ever come to wanting to end my life, And yesterday was somewhat of a breakthrough day. And I just, a good bro of mine, Walking Tree, was like super profoundly like present with me. And that's who I've been staying with the past few days. And he just held so much space for me and so much compassion, and so much like understanding and empathy. But from this place of like, brother, I know how hard it gets, man. And I see you, man, and you're doing profound work, man. All these different ways that it could be spoken to. And so I'm just so grateful for that. And so many people have been showing up for Jaya in that way. And I just want to say, like, if anything, like, I just want to just be, like, be humbled, like, completely. Because, like, exactly like what you said, Theo, with the mirror thing, it's like, Jaya, right before that, was feeling great, man, making all these videos. I've been super present on Facebook for like the past few weeks, right? I was like in the city for 9 days with my family, like I mentioned, for Christmas. And I was like, made the like Facebook Live, walking around my neighborhood. And I'm like, and I was like self-medicating with Valium, like first of all, which is like a benzo, which is like really helpful for anxiety. And so I'm like, how much of that was because I was around my dad so much, so it helped me be like less reactive. It's like, all right, I'm way more peaceful when I have a little Valium in my system, as well as the cannabis, the vape pen, the live rosin like vape pen that I'm puffing a couple times a day, or whatever else it might be, a few drops of tincture, just the different ways that I'm self-medicating. All the sugar in the cookies, like my dietary stuff, New York pizza, Chinese food from down the corner, my mom's homemade cookies, like she makes the best friggin' chocolate chip cookies, man, crunchy 5000. And it was like a way to bond, like with my family, like with food. And I'm a Cancer. I have Cancerians are known for their emotional connection with food and eating. And I definitely have that. I have that tendency to extremisms, like I've fasted. I've gone so long without food, and I've probably overeaten more than so many people. It's just it's not about comparison, but it's just, again, it's humbling to have seen such a wide spectrum of potentiality, Yeah, so, there's this thing called patient consent, right? Or informed consent, which I feel like I didn't have, and a lot of people, and now having done the research and lived through years of this, a lot of people feel like they don't have that we don't have that.
And you weren't informed prior to what you were getting into? So
when David G suggested, like, Jaya, so say you take a serotonin supplement, his way of saying it, for like 6 months or a year to get through this rough patch, that's a lot of times what you hear people say. it's cliche, like get through a bumpy patch, or right after I'm suffering a
temporary.
loss or a breakup. You know, it's temporary. But the thing is, for about 50% of the folks that go on a SSRI, a selective
That's a lot.
serotonin reuptake inhibitor, you know, there's almost like half of us have this thing that's called discontinuation syndrome, you know, where it's really hard for our biology, for our biochemistry, for our brains, you know, for our synapses and whatnot to go back to where they were before. And believe me, it's like way where it's a whole different animal to go through the discontinuation syndrome than it is to deal with the level of depression I was dealing with before, you know.
So it's worse than it was before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a whole different animal, you know. And so that could be said to be true for a lot of things, you know, when we take artificial or chemical substitutions, it's never going to be the same and things like that. But
right, because it's
been,
not actually a supplement.
Yeah, it's not actually a supplement.
It's not
right.
extra. It's modifying some of the very complex mechanisms around reuptake.
Right, well said, yeah. He was just saying it as like supplement, as just slang for something you supplement your life with.
Yeah.
But it's been a long and humbling journey, man, and I forget now, I lost track of times, but it was like 7 or 8 or 9 times that I have tried to get off of it.
How long did you take them for, and how was that first phase of that journey at the SSRIs?
Well, historically, it takes me the full friggin' 3 months before they work, you know, so 12 weeks before they work. But they definitely work for me. They've definitely worked. And it was Prozac for the first, 3 or 4 years. And
So
again,
did
I
you do
lost
3
track.
or 4 years like nonstop?
No.
So you were on and off throughout that time too?
Yeah, because I tried to get off it for the first time after... I tried to taper after like 6 months, you guys. Like, was the first time where I tried to cut down, and it was like scary. I felt the reaction, and I was like, all right, I'm not ready for this. And I just didn't even think about that this might be a long-term thing. It might get worse. Wow. I was just like, wow, because
time now.
I was breaking up with this girl that I was seeing at the time, and it wasn't like a super serious thing, but you know, it was like an intimate connection, and with someone who is my friend, like a sister homie friend, for like years. And then we decided she was kind of, very Virgo like archetype, like Virgo women sometimes I've seen in my history can play through them, where they don't show. It happened at Occupy Wall Street. That was a powerful little chapter of my life. No, this is a different woman, but like another Virgo that I was like super, and part of me is like, what? They were attracted to me? She's like so young and, as far as I'm concerned, very beautiful. Like wavy hair, kind of like Jewy looking in all the right ways. Like I really liked her face. Like she was freaking gorgeous, dude. And she was like, and I, and she liked like dynamic, like leader men. And I kind of leaded this chant. I remember it was like, what's his name? Like that famous guy, Geraldo Rivera, and I started the chant. I said the word "keep it real" before, but keep it real, Fox 5 or something, like the news, and I was like, keep it real, and the whole mob of like 300 of us at Occupy. I lived at Occupy Wall Street for like 3 weeks. But anyway, so this girl, and it turns out I was like, that girl was attracted to me. I found out like months later or something, and I was like, and looking back, I was like, oh my God, she was so into you, Jaya. Like, what the heck?
Duh.
You know?
Right.
Duh. And so the same thing happened with this other sister, my friend Rachel, who I'm like, whoa, she's attracted to me, and then so we were like lovers, but it was like, and it was okay, but it's just a little hard and a little sad when you're like friends for like a few years, and then you're like lovers, and then it like doesn't work out, and it didn't get like. It did get, I think, sloppy and ugly, just in terms of like seeing some patterns that it's like, whoa, there's projection here. Like there's some unresolved childhood trauma here, on both of our accounts. Right. But especially on hers, if I could say that.
Yeah. Sorry. No, we're both gonna fucked up, especially her. Sorry, I had to. Okay, I can't help it. I just kind of like. The couple thing, but yes, please continue, my friend. Excuse that.
That got a little extra, bro. I was being gracious. I feel like, but there was some things that I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that level of emotional maturity or lack thereof. And anyway, so I was like, okay, let me not try to cut down on my Prozac now after just a few months, and I'm going to go back on this. And and I forgot after that when I tried to then taper. But it's been a long and arduous journey, man, and respect for people. And as you know, I've done a bunch of stuff and tried a bunch of stuff, including flying to freaking Costa Rica to take Iboga, as you said. I didn't watch it yet, but Joe Rogan just did a new podcast about that. And so you kindly referenced it for me, and it makes me and it's just kind of humbling and also disheartening to be like, damn, I did that too, bro. Right. I only did it once, and and it was years ago, and I'm still open. I'm definitely open to doing it again for sure. But it's just, it makes me think of that chapter of my life, and it's like, wow, I've gone through some patches, you guys, and it's just humbling to be someone who wants to be. Because let's be real, it's like I'm not a producer. I don't build houses. I don't. There's a lot of things I don't do, that to have a career. Right. And it's like, but I like to talk about the truth. I've dedicated my life to the spiritual path. I've read so many spiritual books. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a teacher. I teach kids, as a substitute. I'm not even a certified school teacher, sorry to judge myself like that or to have that voice come through of, not that I want to be, because I don't believe in the system, but it's just it's just humbling, man, to just kind of carve your own way in life, and then to want to be some kind of spiritual teacher, but then to be like, whoa, but I still do this, or I fell off the wagon with that, I wasn't expecting that, indulgence, which people might not even think of as a big deal, but I do, of whatever particular thing I'm thinking of now.
I ate sugar. And you beat yourself up and be like, so what? It's sugar is great. It's but for you, it's not. For you, it's not your standard, not your integrity.
Right. And especially when the body reacts to, there's so many different layers and levels, right? Everybody. So it's just such a humbling journey being a human. And that's what I'm trying to remember today. And that was my prayer in the Sweat Lodge, to be like, all right, it's so much about, Pluto just entered Aquarius for the next 20 years.
It's a big deal, right?
So we're in the age of Aquarius, which means it has so much to do with togetherness and equality and power to the people, and rainbow family, rainbow tribe, teamwork makes the dream work. And so to remember, I'm part of the team, and I'm here to be part of the team, and I want to show up as best I can. And sometimes I feel great when it's or even if it's in the background of my mind, when I'm like last night, making a Facebook Live, and I'm just exposing myself for all this stuff. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, good, Jaya, this is good. This is spiritual, because it's ego to not have this concept or want people to see you in a certain way. And it's just it's so meta, right? The way the mind could be. For those of us that are intellectual or cerebral types, right. We could be layers and all these ways of looking at it, and self-analysis and projection.
But
and everything.
It's like there's this thing, this desire to do the right thing, and then because you're a good person and you want that, you take that road, and then you're patting yourself on the back for it. And then when you start patting yourself on the back for something, now there's the original reason, and then there's this reward that enters the picture, and it starts getting complex. And there's that spiritual ego thing, the holier than thou thing, and all these layers that can start to present themselves. And we can also fool ourselves into thinking that we're doing things for one reason. Who's to say it's ever one reason? There's so many things that motivate us simultaneously. It's like a whole family of people living inside of you.
And not to get my love from that, right? To just integrate my inner child enough, it's to work enough on my inner little one, which we all have, we all walk around with, we all carry, no matter what age we are. It's to just integrate that one enough to such a state of wholeness that I know he's infinitely loved by the mother, father archetype, eternal, and no matter what. And that doesn't have to, I don't have to establish my self-worth by how I show up in the world,
Right.
or what I give to the world, or how people view me. Let's just make it like
Right.
as accurate as we can as we look at the camera here, you know. And it's like, just to go with the metaphor and the
Right.
imagery and stuff. It's like how people see me. What up, world? It's me up in this bitch. What you think? You know, am I doing good?
Do
Am
you
I good
love
enough?
me?
Do you love me? Yeah. How about when I hold my crystal and honk? Do you love me now? You know? It's like so many, it's just so there, man. It's just so there. And that's part of being human. And that's pretty universal. And so that's a
Yeah.
good thing to like lay out there first
Yeah,
of all,
yeah.
like we were talking about in the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah.
You know, where we're starting to become more mature in terms of how more authentic we're showing up as, and transparent we're being about our suffering, which is why it's like, okay, this is karma yoga. If this is helpful for someone that's going through it, then God bless. Like, let this be in service, you know, to all of those that go through MDD, major depressive disorder,
Yeah.
all those who have just intense anxiety or whatever, like PTSD, like there's so much suffering out there, you
I
guys.
think it's incredibly
all
common.
the addictions.
It's incredibly common, and that a
Yeah.
lot of people have learned to cope or mask or function with it, and maybe even to themselves or bypass or gaslighting themselves into thinking that they don't have it. I've even kind of come to my own conclusions around the way that I treat myself or my perception of myself or how I present. Because anytime that you're getting farther away from the truth of who you are, like that, like, and it kind of goes back to like the inner child. That's like you're kind of carrying that around, like the innocence of yourself, like the isness is the basic you, minus all the other stuff that you've developed and picked up along the way. That anytime that you start to, fake anything or front or not keep it real, you're essentially creating space between you and your authentic self.
Yeah.
And then the more that space grows,
Yeah.
it's just like, your baby, your inner child is just sitting there in your lap crying at dinner because he doesn't feel seen, loved, at work, in your relationship, whatever. It's just, you're just not even being yourself anymore.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are becoming aware of the space between their authenticity and their...
Like you said earlier, on a different level about organizing, when I was like, oh man, my car is disorganized, and you're like, it's easy to fall behind, right? You said you got to keep up with that.
Yeah.
And the same is true if we're not being true with ourselves. Then we start to be like, well, who am I? Then does this person really love me? Especially in our relationships, right? The entanglement that could come from not being showing up as our true self and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm grateful for this conversation, man, and I'm grateful for, ultimately just for the prayer to be like, the prayer to first of all, to get better. I'm not going to lie. There's no other way. That just feels true to say in this moment. Like, I just hope I get better, man, because I do want to, give love to the world and spread kindness and happiness. And I know I can be of service no matter how I am, and I want to remind myself of that now and hear myself say that, mouth, ear, ear, hear the mouth, like that. No matter how I show up, if I'm showing up as my true self, I can be of service. And that harkens back to like calling this conversation like karma yoga. Like, okay, if it's helpful for other people, then great, like so be it, and being transparent. And being willing to let people interpret how they interpret, and to not care, to not have an agenda, like what's my agenda of how people see this one, and so to let that go and to feel the freedom of that, that's an emancipation in and of itself, I proclaim that. It's my emancipation proclamation right now, like for myself, like to just, if it's like, to just show up as myself is like the first of all is service to myself, and second of all, it's service to the world, and I don't need to show up in any kind of way. Like, to just be authentic is powerful, and I just want to be, to feel and spread and allow in the power of love. I just want to receive that And the best way to receive it is to give it, right? And to really give it. And then again, just thinking of Ramana and feeling the heart, just feeling the presence of the heart. Like as I speak right now, it's like feeling the heart. Is it giving love? Is it receiving love? Is it, it's just feeling that center of the chest, that is a part of the organism that can help us kind of anchor into that feeling. So I'm just grateful for that. I'm grateful to just try to aspire to just remember that and to do my best and to keep doing my best. And to be honest, and it's radical, it's, scary to say, but like true. Like I was thinking about my parents earlier today. There was a few hours today where I felt exquisitely good, and I was just and I couldn't believe that yesterday I was like, profoundly suicidal. And I was like, oh, I could never do that to my mom. I could never do that to my dad. Like just thinking my parents. And it's like, all right, Jaya, just remember that. No matter what, just think of your parents. If you think about suicide, just think of your parents. And just remember this promise now that you could never do that to them. Just to name 2 people out of many that I would hate to do that to, that would feel the sense of loss. And it's because there's this feeling when I'm suffering so much that I'm in it alone, that, there's people that care about me, but they're not with me 24/7. I just feel so alone, so isolated in my journey. And it's, my ascendant, my rising is Aquarius, as well as my south node. So that means I come with that kind of like, momentum behind me coming into this lifetime of like the Aquarian archetype, which is they could be very detached and very aloof and very humanitarian, big picture, but like impersonal, somewhat like cold, somewhat intellectual, cerebral and analytical, creative, but like, but my North Node, my Dharma in this life is to step into the Leo even more, which is already my moon. I already have a lot of Leo characteristics. So, and I'm just reminding myself now of that because I haven't heard myself say that or think about that, the North Node. So my Dharma in this lifetime is to step in, is to lean into that Leo, that leonine quality. And so, which means more intimate, more familial. I don't have a family. I've been single. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I've been cool, Bob. But I've been single for like a minute, and that's fine if that's the way it's meant to play. But just recently, I've been sitting with like, you know what? Like I'm ready to call a shorty up in this piece. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm ready to, I got mad love to give to a queen. I know how to treat a woman. Because I know how to love the feminine within myself, and I feel pretty integrated. And I still have stuff that, believe me, I still have. It's not to say I'm baggage free or anything like that. And I feel it's like, oh, I could, I feel like I could represent my masculinity in a sexy way. I could represent my femininity in a sexy way. And I want to share those with someone, I want to share those with a female-bodied person.
It could change everything, brother.
What do you say?
A relationship could change everything. Inevitably does.
Yeah.
Change everything.
Yeah, but I gave up on believing that thought for a long time, and I still don't want to believe that. I don't know how I feel about if I, because of course it can. Anything can change everything, but I don't want to. I used to want it so bad. I used to want it so bad, and it was so much that mom trauma. The biggest trauma of Jaya's life, which I didn't mention yet, but it's like the abandonment of mother with very, very, very jealous, well-meaning, well-intentioned, like very present, like head of the Boy Scouts, basketball coach, etc. My dad, like very intense, like with the math homework. It was like so painful, like to be like, to not figure out the math problem on my own and my dad over my shoulder, but like, he was there. He cared. He was a very present father.
It wasn't neglect.
It wasn't neglect up in that mofo.
Yeah.
But I couldn't go to my mom for anything. He was like there, bro. Like I had to.
He probably didn't even know, right?
My mom admitted this during ayahuasca. My mom did when I begged her to. She did ayahuasca with me. She did MDMA with me when I first fell in love. I was 31 years old. It was 2012 when I first gave my heart to a woman. Yeah, I was before that, women fell in love with me, women that I loved, but I didn't know how to love them for so long. I was 31 years old when I finally gave my heart to a woman. And in the basement before I flew out to meet her on the West Coast, I was in the basement of Queens in New York City in my parents' house, and I begged my mom to drink this herbal tea. I made this chamomile tea with MDMA in it.
What?
I told her it was
Okay.
MDMA in it.
You told her.
Yeah, I told
Okay.
her. But it wasn't as clean as I thought, you guys. Like the next day we were pretty
grinding?
shot. We were pretty like hungover. But she did MDMA, Molly with me, ecstasy with me, and to help do this healing work. And we were like praying together, and she admitted to me that she cut me off emotionally, because my dad was jealous, and so that's like the main trauma is like, and the mom wound and the feminine wound is like my mom abandoned me emotionally, and that's huge, So my dad was hard on me, and that was tough, but it was nothing to like my mom cutting me off emotionally.
Yeah.
And my dad's whatever psychosexual stuff that he had subconsciously with this little boy, Jason, that was there, his competitor with Bridget, his wife. You know how that could play out, right? And it's human nature.
Too,
Nobody blamed you. What?
I had stepdads too.
You had stepdads too.
Yeah.
Word.
Multiples.
Wow. Yeah, man. So bless them, man. Bless him. And that's not easy. And life isn't easy. And all the roles we wear, all the hats we could take on or put off or put on again. It's not easy being human. And I'm grateful to have this conversation to kind of like shed a little light on my journey, for whatever it's worth, for whatever reason, to talk about it. And it's just conversations with the universe, like the title and the cover of this journal someone gifted me for solstice this year. Conversations with the universe. That's all this is, right? It's like...
That's what it's like when I talk to you, dog.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I.
Well, we're right
So I'm
there
grateful.
at that like 90-minute mark, and I think we actually got to I had a great conversation first of all, but I think we're at a place where we could easily come back to this conversation and know where we left off and pick up and go a new direction with
I
it
hope we
too.
do that, Bob. I hope we do that.
So if you feel comfortable, wrapping this up, if there's any things you want to say, or if there's any thing you want to get out to the world, or if anyone's interested in getting in touch with you, if you want to
pray for me.
Any of that, pray for Jaya.
Is that okay to say?
Yes.
Sorry to be selfish.
That's not selfish, dog.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess it takes some courage to ask but I just really hope that I get better, and whatever that looks like. I just want to get better just a little bit easier, a little bit better. I mean, at the minimum, a little bit with my digestion or my immune system or my heart, the heart palpitations that this body deals with, or the liver pain that happens or something. Just symptomatically, but mostly, that the depression and the anxiety just chill out a little bit. I've been getting ECT, we didn't talk about that, but electroconvulsive therapy. That's partially why my short-term memory is so shot. But that's been the latest kind of chapter. I was inpatient in the hospital because I was so suicidal. My friend took me to the hospital. I don't really remember this that much, but it was last month down in Binghamton. And Monday morning, my dear friend, my dear sister, one of my best friends, Inga, is going to bring me to my ECT, my session, where they put some oxygen on, and then you just kind of pass out. It's that good feeling, right before you pass out, and then you have to put this thing in because you bite so hard. So you bite on it's pretty intense. And it seemed like it was working, but then I was like, oh no, did I mess up by taking a couple Valium? I mean, I don't know how many Valium I took over the course of the last 2 months. Not a ton because I didn't have a ton, but I'm like, oh, did I take enough to build dependency or whatever it is that self-medicating. So anyway, the point is, I just pray that I get well, and I just pray that that everybody gets well, and that we all learn how to do what we need to do. To speaking of the self-knowledge, not on the most sublime and transcendent sense of the word, but self-knowledge in the sense how do we accommodate our body mind organism? How do we take care of our animal self a little bit better, a little bit more refined, with a little bit more refinement, with a little bit more acumen? Is that the right application of that word? Or a little bit more acuity, or a little bit more TLC, just tenderness and tender love and care.
Yeah.
And I just pray that we all learn the power of self-care, the power of integrating that little one, remembering to love the inner child, because that's as much of the journey too, as much as to be with the babas and the that to remember that there's only Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You know, Shiva's the destroyer. It's the god of fire. It's that representation of the void of the universe. If we're going to personify it, but we're still going to think of that transcendent, like non-anthropomorphized. You know, it's like, okay, Lord Shiva is just the absolute, the darkness, the void, or, you know, Ma Kali. But also there's that inner little one too, and that's part of the, you know, while we're here, we still have the childhood, we still have the cellular memory of childhood, and whether we believe in past lives or not, you know, we may have stuff from previous lifetimes or previous incarnations, and there's just so much to learn, and there's so much, so I just pray that we're just receptive, you know, to the wisdom and how to apply commonsensically ways for betterment, for personal betterment, and that we learn how to do that together, you know, like as family, as rainbow family, you know, like this new paradigm of us coming together and helping each other, and just knowing that we're enough, you know, knowing what our place is in the whole dance of life and the whole kind of manifestation of the universe.
I hope, brother. You're an incredible communicator.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Om, amen, and a ho, as my friend used to say. Om, amen, and a ho. This guy in India, just the globalization, right? This British brother, this dude from the UK, who I met in India, who was serving combo, you know, the frog medicine, the frog venom poison medicine, which is like indigenous medicine from the Americas, from down south. And I forget where originally, but down in like South America, I believe, or Central America.
It's like Amazonian, I think so.
Yeah, Amazonian. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because it was grandmother that first showed the tribe where to find the frog, right? It was Grandma Ayahuasca.
Oh, wow.
That showed them where to find that combo frog.
So if you didn't throw up enough yet, here's one more for you.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I hope on our next hang we can get more into the medicine, because I know
anything
you
and everything,
I both
bro.
have a lot.
Yeah. With psychedelic experiences. Yeah, man. Grateful to get to chat with you, bro, and joke around with you, and reverently irreverent. I feel that balance with you. So thank you, Theo. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, everyone, for anyone that might have listened. Peace be with you.
Thanks for tuning in to our first episode from the new spot.
Wait. I feel like we didn't like shake.
Yeah, you want to do it like this? Like this? Thanks to everyone for tuning in to our inaugural episode of the new spot here at Glob Studios. Thanks to our good friend Bob Hutko for running the board back here, and Jaya for being our guest. Wish you all a beautiful 2025 and beyond, and please, like in the sentiment that we've been speaking on here, just like take really good care of yourself.
Yes, I.
See you next time.
See you.